welcome to the July 2022 episode of our films review of the And Now for Something Completely Machinima podcast. Again, today we're a team of three. I'm Tracy Harwood and I'm joined by Damien Valentine.
Hello there.
And Phil Rice.
I will say my greeting. Damien was talking about Star Wars earlier, so I'll do a live long and prosper.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
Very clever.
I love how I totally screwed up the. You should see me try to. My kid tried to teach me how to dab. Oh, just forget about it. My hands are all over the place. I'm doing.
Great.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ricky is once again not with us. He is still finishing Elden Ring. It's been forever. And we are really looking forward to him joining us again next month. Now, we've got some fantastic films to share with you once again. So let's crack straight on with that. And Damien, I think we're going to go straight to you. And I have to say, I think you've got a very timely a couple of releases for us.
Yeah, there's a very specific theme to both my choices this month. The first one I actually found by accident. I wasn't looking for a film to choose when I came across this. I recently went to see the new Top Gun Maverick film, and I really enjoyed it. So I was looking up Top Gun films on YouTube, and the first one I came across was, what if Top Gun, as in the original film, was a British film? And it's kind of a combination of live action for the actual scenes with the actors, but then for the actual flying sequence, they used a flight simulator, which I couldn't identify which game it was, so I have no idea which flight simulator it was. And what they've done is, over the course of 3 videos, they've recreated the original, roughly more or less the original film, with a focus on the action sequences rather than the romance. In fact, there's even a joke at one point where they make fun of themselves for not including the romantic scenes, and that's fair enough because they want to do a sort of an action fan video. And I was really entertained by it because they did a pretty good job of doing the story, but they made it funny, and the Britishness of it as well. It's kind of not what you expect from Top Gun. So what do you guys think?
Shall I go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say the very long, and I do mean very long, what was it, 2 minutes 20 seconds advert for their sponsors totally threw me at the start. Since I was basically expecting a bit of Top Gun stuff, and there was none of that. Anyway, I thought it had great humor with the racket sports in the rain too, which of course, as this episode goes out, we're into Wimbledon at the moment here in Blighty, and there was really lots of very British culture stereotype in jokes, which I guess if you don't know all the British culture in jokes, then possibly that might kind of pass you by. I thought it was almost as badly edited together as the jokes, of which there really are quite a lot. But actually, the two of those things together made it quite an enjoyable watch somehow. The editing style, the real acting, and the machinima and the parody style kind of mixed together. It's quite fun. Nothing, of course, like a parody of the film, but a riff on everything everyone knows about the Brits. Awful haircuts, bad teeth included, the weather, the technology, the language, plus the odd bit of English countryside and nature encounter. I really quite liked it.
Yeah, I was thrown by the. I got about 60 seconds into the opening sponsor video and just thought, why did Damien give us this link? What is this? And then I happened to hover over the timeline, and it shows chapter breakdowns for that. And I thought, oh, okay, so this is a sponsored bit. And yeah, 2 minutes, 20 seconds. So then the movie proper, I fast forwarded. And the movie proper started. And about 60 seconds into that, I was like, why did Damien send us this link? Because it took a little while before before the shots came in where I realized, okay, this is they're using some flight sim stuff in the background. And I couldn't identify the simulator either, Damien. We need to get what's his name, Russell. Russell probably spot it in 3 seconds flat.
Yeah,
because he's his last name is totally slipping my mind right now, but he has done all kinds of stuff with the different flight sims. But anyway, yeah, it had the feel. I think what saved this film is that it clearly didn't take itself too seriously. They were just friends having fun, and the tone of it as kind of silly and yeah, some of the British stuff went over my head. Some of it didn't. I'm probably a little more aware than some would be, but there was some of it that I've kind of gotten used to that if I ever watch British comedy, there's stuff I'm not going to get as an American, and I've just kind of gotten used to that. But what I do get, I love so much that I keep watching it. So and this was right in it just sat right neatly in that pocket. I thought that the use of the footage was a clever way to do really the only technical thing that was, I think, needed on this. Yeah, it was fun and just a kind of a lighthearted and clever way to make use of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Just for the sake of our audience, I chose part 2 because it had the most flight sequences in it. I was going to do part 1 just because that's the beginning, but there wasn't a lot of flying in it, which is the Machinima parts of it. And I thought, well, we're a Machinima show, so she's the part had the most Machinima in it. So yeah, I'm glad you both enjoyed it. That brings me on to my second video, which is also a Top Gun video. This is a little bit more serious. It's a shot-for-shot recreation of the opening sequence for the new film. It more or less mirrors the opening sequence of the original film, where they're on the aircraft carrier and you see the flight crews getting the jets ready to go, and they fly off and others come in and land. And
spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the movie, there are jets and aircraft carriers.
Yeah. So sorry if I just spoiled the whole film for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to talk about the new film beyond that because it's the opening sequence of it. And if you've seen the original, you have a pretty good idea of what to expect from this scene anyway. Again, this is another video I found completely by accident when I wasn't looking for something for this show. And it was made with a flight simulator, which they do identify. It's DCS World. And my understanding is it's a very hardcore flight simulator. Everything is as realistic as it possibly can be. So it's not a game you can just pick up and play casually. But I was impressed by the amount of detail that went into recreating this, because it'd be easy to do a similar recreation, but this was pretty much every camera angle was identical. Even some of the numbers on the planes were the same as the ones in the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you got extra detail like the movements, the flight crews are moving, doing the hand signals, and the planes come down, there's cables on the aircraft carrier to catch the planes to stop them from going off the front. Even that's in there, and I know it's obviously part of the game, but just the fact that they had that as an option and could zoom in close really helps recreate this scene. And I wouldn't want to see the whole film recreated that way, even just the flying sequences, but I can see just doing that is an impressive feat. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, I think the whole film would be a pretty ambitious thing to try, because there's, once you get into the talky bits of it, I kind of doubt this game, which amazingly, according to YouTube, this game is from 2008. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Doesn't a 14-year-old game, and it doesn't look it at all.
Yeah.
I have not seen the film, as I said, but it has, I believe it is shot for shot, because it definitely has the feel of modern professional grade editing of shots. I mean, it is, you don't have to see the film to know this is imitating the work of someone who does this for a living. You know, it's exceptional. One effect that was particularly impressive to me, and I don't know if it was added in post or if it's a visual effect in the game, but in some of the early shots in particular, the heat waves, the heat coming off the deck of the carrier as the planes go by, which is kind of a signature shot. I remember shots like that in some of the scenes from the original Top Gun. It just, that little detail, but it gives you this real sense of, it's engaging all your senses, you know, as much as is possible for a film.
Yeah.
So I found it very impressive, and the age of the game is what blew my mind. I can't believe it's that old.
I did not realize that when I chose the film. That just makes it even more impressive.
Well, you know, what you also shared was a little clip of the actual opening scene on YouTube, because I also haven't seen the film, so that was potentially really helpful. But by the time I actually clicked it, it had already been taken down by Paramount. So that was a bit unfortunate. But then I thought, I'm just going to find another little clip of the opening scene, and I managed to find a sort of a 24-hour-old Italian open scene. And what I then did was played them side by side. And I have to say, I was incredibly impressed with how Phenom's version had recreated the scene in this digital combat simulator world, almost exactly scene for scene, timing and all the lot. Excellent shots. I mean, absolutely brilliant in the way that that it was all done. I mean, down to the detail of what was in each scene as they were being recorded, literally playing them side by side. You could see exactly how it was done. I guess that's how they actually created it in the first place. They had the thing running side by side. I guess the only thing I would say is, why are we seeing so many of these opening scene machinimas? And you know, I think when in the past when we've talked about this, we've sort of said, is it that folks are basically creating, you know, testing their creative skills within these kind of games, rather than extending the kind of story world per se? I mean, what I was going to do in our news section last week actually was mention a similar sort of thing to this that had been created of Alien, where, you know, they'd done pretty much exactly the same thing. They'd created the first scene, but using Unreal Engine. But what I don't understand is why people are doing it. What am I missing?
Here's how I've come to look at it. And then, Damien, I'd love to hear what you think too. But, you know, think of it as a boxer. Okay, you've got a boxer, someone who is going to be in the ring going 10 rounds with someone. But part of their routine is going to be working out with weights. And part of the routine is going to be hitting the heavy, you know, the speed bag. And part of it's going to be hitting the heavy bag. And part of it's, if you're Sylvester Stallone, you're going to be doing reverse crunches from the rafter of some building up north and pushing big tires over, all this CrossFit stuff, you know. To me, this exercise it's a workout of certain, it's only using certain muscle groups. So someone might look at someone pushing over a tire and think, well, that doesn't have anything to do with how to, you know, beat another man half to death. Why is he doing that? Well, it's working certain muscle groups that need work, that need building up. And I think that that's a decent metaphor for this type of project. Is you're not working the whole body. You're not training for the overall activity. You're picking a set of skills that you need for this. And some of it's already done for you. You know, the shot selection is the hardest part of this clip. That's the hardest part. That requires the most skill. It's the easiest way for it to look amateurish is with bad shot selection. That's already done. That choice has already been made. You know, what to show in each scene, how to lay things out, that's already been made. All you have to do is imitate. But you do get to learn how the cameras work in the game, what the different focal length. I mean, there's such a wide variety of shots, wide to really close up. There's different movements and animations that have to happen. So to me, that's what it is. It's a method of workout to get better at a subset of the skills that you need to be a good filmmaker, hoping that will rub off on you, that you don't just imitate so that you can only learn to produce that scene for the rest of your life. It's as you're working on that, hopefully, well, I think the hope of someone entering into that is maybe I can pick up on some of the why was this chosen? Why was this shot chosen to go after this one and the next one? And what about this makes it great composition? Because this is composition that's been done in another medium by a complete master of the craft. So to me, that's where I see the value is in it. You certainly don't want to spend your whole, all of your time doing just that. I think for a creative person, it gets boring if you do it too much. But I think there's value to it. Just like to me, if I'm wanting to be a better tennis player, doing stretching is boring. You don't want to spend your whole day stretching. Eventually you want to hit the ball, but if you don't stretch, there's consequences to that. I think I may be pushing it a bit, but I think that there's an analogy there that makes sense to me as someone who makes films. There's sometimes when I spend time working specifically on sound design, just for the sake of doing it, or trying to make a soundscape that sounds similar to this. When I'm mixing a music track that I have recorded, a very common practice is to have reference music on one of the channels that you could switch over to. You pick, if I'm doing like some kind of, 90s rock sound, then I might have a Soundgarden track that has a similar type of texture and sound that I want. And every once in a while when I'm mixing, you switch over to that reference music. This is what's done in recording studios as well, for all different genres of music. And it's a matter of, learning from that and practicing those skills outside of a real project has value that you hope will accrue and build up and you can apply to your own later.
Interesting points. Thank you.
I think I'm very much in agreement with Phil. I mean, recreating a sequence from a Hollywood film or any sort of big budget film is a good way to learn. You don't have to recreate the whole film, but I think I did a shootout scene in one of my old projects, and I'd never done a shootout scene before. So I didn't know where to place the camera angles, place the cameras, or I knew where to put the characters because, they're going to be this side of the room, they're going to be hiding behind things, and on the other side of the room, they're going to be hiding things over there. But I didn't know where to place the cameras or how to make it cut between the two. So I went back and watched some shootout scenes in some films I enjoyed. I didn't copy them, but I thought I could see why they put that there, because you can see them firing over the thing they're using for cover. And I think if you're going to recreate a scene from a film, it's a good way to learn because you understand why they did things like that. And I mean, especially something complex like this Top Gun video. Okay, it's planes flying off and landing, but it's a lot more complicated than that because you have all the shots of the people running around and the pilots doing the hand signals in the plane, and how do you get the camera to follow the plane as it's going along the runway and taking off? Or it's things like that. It's a very complex scene to create. So by recreating it like this, it's a good way to learn. So when you want to create your own, you know how to do it.
Yeah.
And
well, there's a language to it, isn't there? We've talked about there's a language of cinema, and it's part of that is the visual language of how the camera conveys information to us. And when you want to learn a language, you don't it's helpful to analyze text by someone who's already a master of that language. To learn how to put the words together properly. And I think it's that analogy works here as well too.
And these guys obviously they really enjoyed DCS Worlds as a game to play, and if they want to make the stories of it, or recreating a film that's obviously about planes, just a sequence of that's a good way to learn. Because if they want to do a proper film about in this flight simulator, well, why not create recreate?
Oh yeah,
from this very popular. They obviously
you do it hoping it rubs off, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks for answering that. Really appreciate that. Phil, do you want to lead on Hired Steel?
Yeah, this is apparent. I'm told that this is a part 2 of something that I picked on a prior episode. I have no memory of that whatsoever. But it's called Hired Steel, a Mech Machinima. And this is episode 2. And when I think of mech games, I'm reminded of one that I played late 90s. I can't even remember what it was called, but the graphics were very, it almost looked like Tron, you know, visible polygons and no real texture on them, and just very primitive. And it was ridiculously complex. It was almost like learning a flight simulator to control this thing. And it was probably the worst purchase I ever made for a video game. Like, in terms of, I just gave up like really quickly. Like, I don't even care. I don't want to learn how to do this. So, and it certainly was not anything that was visually arresting at all. And that's, you know, mech games have, let's say, have come quite a long way since then. And the thing that's impressive about this is it's visually stunning, very well directed. There's a nice sense of the story there. The characters are surprisingly well animated and lip synced, which again, you know, that's I'm old. That's not what I was expecting at all. So, and apparently I've marveled at this before, but again, I don't remember, but I'm glad that I was reminded of this. And what did you guys think?
Well, I really liked it, actually. What I liked about it was the way the cameras were used to zoom in and give you more detail as the troops kind of moved, you know, where they were sort of zooming in from different angles and whatnot. I thought it was incredibly well done. I mean, the focus is obviously on the fighting action with these kind of, what do you call them, exo robots or something? I don't know what you call them.
Mechs. Yeah.
Mech. They are the mechs, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, shows you how much I know
Tron
about
light
them.
cycles. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever you call them, anyway. But I think the attention to detail as the combat scenes were set up was brilliant. And actually, what I also liked about it was the sound design as well.
Oh yeah, great sound.
Really, really good sound. And I think actually the other thing I would say about this is it's really worth watching it right to the very end of the credits, because they show you some of the storyboards they created for the scenes and how they planned to do those shots that I just mentioned. I thought it was incredibly well done. Really, really enjoyed it. And Phil, you did pick it for the August episode of our films review in season 1. And it's clearly taken them several months to produce the episodes. So, because I think it only just launched when you picked it up the first time. So, and this one,
this one came out in February.
Yeah, this one's been out a couple of months. So I think it's about 6 months worth of work that has gone into this, which I think almost definitely shows in what you're looking at there. So, great pick.
Yeah, I can see why it took them so long to make it, because even though it's just a very short video, it's about 5 minutes long, there's just so much happening, and
there's a lot going on, isn't there? Yeah.
And it's not too much happening, it's just the right amount of stuff that's happening. And obviously it would have taken a long time to figure out, you know, how they're going to, I guess it's done in the multiplayer mode, and so that they can, each player is controlling different aspects of it, but to coordinate all of that and to make sure that whoever was controlling the camera could get it all in, and it's visually stunning, which I know is more down to the game, but I was just impressed by that as well. Even things like there's a sequence where some missiles get fired and the smoke comes out of the missile launcher, and that's not necessarily needed for detail, but it's there and it adds something to it. Like if it wasn't there, you wouldn't think about it, but it is there and you notice it and it makes it look better. And so I think that they chose a really good game to create this story. Obviously the big fans of the game know it really well, which is obviously an essential thing to do if you want to create a really good machinima film, is to really take the time to understand the game and know what it can do and what it can't do and all of that kind of stuff. And these guys have, and they've produced an excellent film. And I know we've probably got a while to wait for the third chapter, but I look forward to that as well.
One more thing I'll mention too that I found particularly impressive is, given that this was, from all appearances, filmed in some kind of multiplayer mode, the fact that the camera work was so good, and there's a handheld feel to it, that I don't think, maybe that can be done in like After Effects or something like that, but it sure felt like that camera movement was somehow happening in the engine when it was rendered. Maybe there's some kind of built-in recording system with the game, but to pull that off in multiplayer and get those shots right, it's quite impressive work.
It's very hard to do that kind of camera work with a mouse and keyboard or whatever. Head, right? Even
with a controller, I mean, the precision was just wonderful. There's several shots where it starts out wide and then some action happens, and it's a very quick zoom, and it's just so exact. So it was very impressive.
I really love that. I think that's been my favorite one this week, actually. Okay, moving on then. I've picked a film called Star Citizen News Redline Episode 2 by Elite Expeditionary, by EE Studios. Now, Elite Expeditionary is an organization that operates within Star Citizen, which, Damien, you can probably tell us a bit more about this in a minute. Now, Redline is a series. It's a bit like a cross between, do you remember Chris Burke's This Spartan Life and Red versus Blue, Series 1, that we saw way back in those very early days of Machinima? This is kind of positioned a little bit like a kind of a news review come sort of, Halo-ish reportage, I suppose. In this episode, though, what we've got is this reporter called Neutronics out with this elite expeditionary team as they're on some kind of training exercise on a planet somewhere in the cosmos. There's a lot of really crude humor in it, much as you might kind of expect from probably real
Would You Rather?
You kind of definitely get that sort of realism through that to an extent, if you can stand it. And basically the thrust of the Red Line narrative is trying to kind of get under, I think, the skin of those citizens in the worlds, rather than just showing some of the neat tech or the game engine capability. And actually, I think it's got that kind of interesting approach to it that does kind of show off the tech really well through its narrative approach to telling these kind of personal stories, through these kind of, I guess, somewhat inept eyes of the reporter. Although I think some of the episodes probably do cross a line too far in the process. There's actually 5 episodes in the series. So you can kind of see how the reportage progresses throughout. And I think it's actually worth watching it for possibly one point alone, because I think in the start of this episode, what you see is that the lip sync is awful. But it actually gets better as you watch more of the episodes overall. So what did you guys think?
I was jarred by the lip sync of the opening shot. I was reminded of some of the films that we've reviewed in the past, where it's like, if the lip sync is not that bad, then maybe don't make it the feature of the shot, And with that opening shot, it's, and I don't know anything about how the character control or the animation works in Star Citizen. If this were done in iClone, then I'd think, okay, it's almost like they changed the mesh of the model to where it's like a mouth breather thing, where the mouth that's the starting point, and then all the lip sync motions happen without. He never quite closes his mouth all the way.
Yeah.
So like every time he says the letter M and those lips don't ever touch, it just kept jarring me, But what's weird is that there's a lip sync section at the end of this video, where that problem isn't there.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know the technical explanation for that, for why that was that way in the opening scene and it wasn't in the closing. maybe they just, learned how to fix it by the end of this episode, and next one it's better. I don't know. But anyway, overall, yeah, enjoyable, a little bit slow paced, I think, at times. I feel like that it could have been edited a little bit tighter. This particular episode, the crude joke that's kind of the at the apex of it, just it's something I shouldn't laugh at, but I did. The would you rather, and then let me ask that again. Would you rather? It's just so absurd. But I think what was funniest about that joke is the reporter doesn't answer the question that's being forcibly put to him, and it just cuts, and the very next scene is just the reporter kind of sitting off by himself, like almost like in PTSD mode, just like, what just happened? Not saying a thing though. To me, that's where I laughed.
Yeah,
like, really laughed.
Me too.
More so than the joke or whatever the punchline would be. That to me was the punchline, and I thought, okay, that was well done. Well, cruder than it needed to be, but that's a fun way to handle that. Until you said it, Tracy, it didn't really strike me how much focus in this, that this is a human interest piece in a video game. And that very much it's not about tech at all. Like you said, the tech is present, you see it, but it's almost like a background element. It's not, and that to me, that makes it a little bit more impressive. Because if we're supposed to suspend disbelief and go into this world with these people, they wouldn't be thinking about the tech the way we would.
Yeah.
Not seeing it. To them, that's just their everyday. People don't talk about the everyday, the stuff, they don't marvel at things that are normal to them. And no one in this did. So it very much was about this guy just trying to come to understand these people, maybe even trying to ingratiate himself a little bit and be cool like they are. And just the fact that those emotions are what come through on this is quite an achievement for Machinima. Machinima doesn't often even attempt that.
That's right.
Going deep like that, much less pull it off. We see some that attempt it and it just falls flat. And in this sense, this is very successful, I think, for that reason, that you could easily forget it's Machinima while watching it if you wanted to. Not for tech reasons, not for video rendering reasons, not for any of those reasons, but just if you started thinking about these people as people, very easy to go along for the ride. Like, it has a believability to it. So I like that. I like that they're attempting that.
Damien, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very different from some of the other Star Citizen videos we've looked at before, which there's that one, I can't remember the name of it now, but the one with the father and the daughter as the crew on the ship.
Adrift.
Yeah, that was it. It was obviously a very serious story. And there's the other one that Ricky chose way back where the guy, it was a comedy one where
he's out there alone, right?
Yeah, and he goes on that mission into the cave and he finds the body and whatever it was.
Yeah.
So this is, again, something very different, which I think shows that the sandbox nature of Star Citizens, it allows you to tell these very different kinds of stories. And some of that humor in this particular one did make me wonder a bit, but like you, the humor was not the joke, but what came after the joke. And that, again, that made me laugh more than the joke itself, which I think, Matt, is probably the point, actually. And it did remind me of some of those early Machinima where they were kind of poking fun at themselves in the game rather than telling a serious story in the game, which is good because, again, it's flexible in this, what they're doing here. The organization, Expeditionary, I don't really know it, because the way the game works is players can create their own organizations to do certain things, and it could be whatever they want. Obviously, this is a mercenary group that goes in and to do combat situations, but the game isn't just about going in and blowing things up. You can play the game without firing a single shot if you want to. You can do peaceful exploration, or you can just deliver cargo, or if you want to, you can just sit in a bar all day in world and chat with other players. It's kind of got that sort of open world flexibility, and people have organizations to do those things. I mean, if you want, like I said, the bar could be owned by another player. I know that that's what they want to do, is to basically create a huge space sandbox, so people can do what they want. You don't have to fly in a spaceship and blow things up and risk your life every day. You just live in this alternate world. And I think this video is a good way of capturing that, because you've got the reporter, feels like they're a player reporting on things happening in the world, and obviously you've got the humor in it to make the video funny. But if you wanted to, you could be a serious game reporter, in-game reporter, and go around covering in-game events and have a serious news show if you wanted to. And I think, you know, I thought the video was well done, and there's might not be the most exciting thing, but it doesn't have to be, because that's not the point.
I think your comments actually reflect what the other episodes are. Now you come to say that, because they are all different sort of scenarios, like blowing rocks up, or exploring a cave, or exploring a social environment, and what have you. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, well, my next little pick, I don't know what you guys make of this one. This is actually a concept short film made in Unreal Engine 5 by JSFilmz, and it's an entry into the Unreal Better Light Than Never contest, which we mentioned in last week's news episode. It's basically a soldier walking through a darkened scene with some amazing sound design to it. Basically, he's walking into a dinosaur, a velociraptor or something like that. It's an incredibly short piece. I think it's 28 seconds long, which is well, I mean, the fact that he can tell a story in such a short period of time, I think, is probably one of the things that impressed me the most with this. Actually, I kind of wanted it to be a little bit longer, but I don't think it needs to be to achieve what it's done. And in the comments that he's got on the film, you can see that what it's been inspired by I think the 1999 PlayStation survival horror action game called Dino Crisis, where you've got a plot of dinosaurs marauding over these kind of closed environments. I think that's kind of what inspired it. And I think for me, what comes over so well in this is this atmosphere that has been created. You can kind of cut it with a knife, this eerie lighting, and the footfalls of the soldier, and the kind of grumbling of this creature. And you can see that mocap's been used in this as well with the soldier. Generally, I thought it was really nice work. What do you guys think?
JSFilmz has done some excellent videos. He's got some excellent tutorials, which you've mentioned before, and we talked about some of his actual films as well. And again, this is another one that, even though it's short, he's giving us a little bit of a taste of what this can do. He likes to do sort of test videos and short videos just to see what software he's using can do. And he's used Unreal and Omniverse, and he's played around with iClone and Character Creator. And when you start watching this film and you have this soldier walking through the corridor, you could, if you didn't know it was Machinima, you could probably think it was a real live action, as an actor wearing this suit. You don't see his face. Mm-hmm. And usually when you've got Machinima characters, it's the skin and the face that give it away. Because he's got a mask on and a visor, so you can't see anything about him. So you can easily imagine this is a real person walking through this dingy corridor, someone with a camera behind filming it, and then of course the dinosaurs there waiting for him, which is a bit of a giveaway that it's not necessarily real. But again, it shows what the potential is with Unreal to be able to pull off something like that. He said it's a test concept video, so I'm hoping that he's going to do more like this, because it'd be interesting to see what he's got in mind. It's kind of, because it is so short, it's really hard to say anything more about it. I enjoyed it. I want to see more of what he can do with it. So I liked it.
Yeah, he has a 9-minute or so video on his channel that starts off showing this and then goes into kind of some behind the scenes of how it was made and stuff, and actually showing work in the Unreal editor and stuff like that. It's very interesting. I found the short it was a little dark. I don't mean that emotionally. I mean, like, visually on the screen is just a little bit too dark to where dark almost to the point where there was like a haze or a blur to it. Now, maybe that was a stylistic choice, but I don't know. I found myself distracted by that. I couldn't really, maybe it's just that these old eyes are getting bad or something, but I spent most of the time kind of struggling with, wait, what's happening? What I couldn't really see what was going on. I had to watch it a few times. Maybe that's me, but I would have enjoyed a little bit more crispness, a little bit more highlights. You don't have to bring up the ambient light of the whole scene. That's the point, is that it's dark and kind of scary. But it felt a little bit washed out with darkness, I guess. But as far as execution, everything you guys have mentioned it's definitely there. It's wouldn't be surprised to learn that some of this animation was done with mocap, because it's very realistic, his movement. The dinosaur, I don't think that was mocap. I don't think
I hope
so.
not.
You say that, but the new version of iClone has a T-Rex.
Oh.
It has human motion, so you can do mocap for it, which I haven't done yet, but I want to try it.
I'm planning on getting one of those adult inflatable dinosaur costumes, and just doing all my dinosaur work using that live action. Yeah,
I look forward to seeing.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know. I guess there has to be, at least one film in Ricky's tradition. There has to be one film that somebody doesn't like as much. So this is it. I was just kind of meh.
Okay, well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you on the darkness, but yeah, I quite liked it. Anyway, that's it for this month's film reviews. Thank you very much for your input, both of you. Really appreciate it. We hope you've enjoyed the film selection as much as we did, with the exception of the latter one, Phil. If you see anything you think we should be taking a look at, including anything you've done yourself, do please get in touch. You can find all the usual communication methods on our website at completelymachinima.com. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Discord, Twitter, and even on TikTok, although I confess I'm still trying to figure that one out a bit. Going to be calling on my 14-year-old niece for a little bit of assistance on that. Anyway, just before we go, there is one thing that I wanted to mention, which is that next week we have a really fascinating interview for you with David Blandy, whose work you may recall we reviewed last month, How to Fly Like a Cormorant. So don't miss that. He's an absolutely fascinating person to hear speak, and he's probably one of the most successful media artists currently using Machinima as part of his creative practice, that certainly I've seen for many years. Anyway, that's it for us this month. Have fun and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.